Let's talk about our phones for a minute. They're a tool, right? We can check our email on them and manage our calendars. But the thing about tools is the relationship usually goes one way. Like, you can pick up a hammer and use it and set it down when you're done, and it doesn't try to call your attention or use you back. I think if we're really honest about how we relate to our phones, we might start to realize that that relationship of using and being used kind of goes both ways. I've been noticing a lot lately as I've been more intentional about how I use my phone and really using it a lot less, that our phones very much use us. And to be more specific, not really the phones, but the people who designed our phones and the businesses and entities that design applications for our phones and want us looking at these screens as long as humanly possible. That relationship of the user and the tool a lot of times has been reversed when it comes to how we use our phones. And instead, it's really like we're the tools. So when you think about the last hour or the last day and all the times that you've used your phone, ask yourself, were you really using it or was it using you? And you might be surprised by how often the answer is the latter, that it was really using you. It was using you to grab attention, to convince you to buy something, to convince you of what your life should look like or who you are or aren't. It's all too common these days to fill in our downtime, whether it's standing in line at the grocery store or commuting to work, with looking at our phone or listening to something from our phone. And a lot of times these moments when we are passively consuming information or content from our phones, we are the tools. Our phone is no longer a tool and it's using us. And if these patterns of behavior describe you, it's not your fault. This is truly all by design. In this video, I'll be talking about how smartphones and apps have been designed to turn us into the tool. I'll be talking about the effects of these design decisions and how they've changed our lives and how we experience ourselves. I'll share a few helpful tips about how to log off or at least spend less time on your phone and use it more intentionally. And I'll talk about some of the good things that might happen when you do decide to put your phone down. Okay, so if you've ever had the experience of unlocking your phone to respond to a message or put something on your calendar, and then all of a sudden you're totally in a hole scrolling on the internet, that's not your fault. It's by design. So I'm going to tell a little story about why I have never downloaded Instagram. This is not to brag about being offline, because I'm not offline. I have a Reddit account, for instance, and I definitely look at it. I'm talking to you on YouTube and I watch YouTube videos. So I am human. I am mortal. But this story kind of gives a little bit of insight as to how the sausage is made and why it's absolutely not your fault if you are addicted to your phone, or if you have a really hard time like standing in line without looking at a screen, or just, this is by design. So when I was an undergrad, like 15 years ago, at Stanford, I was studying psychology, and I remember hearing these rumors that this was like kind of early days, like pre-Meta, like Facebook was still Facebook, and like you could take like an Uber Black for like $7. I don't even think UberX existed at this point. So these were like early days in the kind of like second wave tech boom. And yeah, so I was in the psychology department, and I remember hearing these rumors, these sort of rumblings about these deep underground labs that had fMRI machines where they were scanning people as they looked at phones, and Instagram was, using this I think Facebook too. They were using this data and information to design the apps to be as addictive as possible. And I remember hearing that, and I'll admit I've never like seen these labs. I have worked in a lab that used fMRI scanners, but it was not for UI design. So I don't know the research intimately or anything like that, but that was enough to totally freak me out, because it really highlights that like these companies have an understanding of how our brains work in a very intimate way, and they are exploiting this information to essentially hijack our brains. And I, at that point, was like, I am human, and no amount of willpower can overcome whatever they are doing to literally get into our brains. And I just knew that if I downloaded Instagram, I would probably become addicted to it. Like I don't have it because I know that I would be totally susceptible to getting lost in the scrolling and the social comparison and just all of these things that would probably have me feeling worse about myself. And so I downloaded it not because I am like above anything, but precisely the opposite, because I'm totally like I am a human animal that is so susceptible to all of the like marketing schemes and just messages that we get all the time in all these different ways, that we're not enough and we need to be a certain way to be good enough, and that we need to consume, and I just didn't need more of that. And another quick anecdote. So for those of you who have only ever known the infinite scroll model, where like when you have a news feed on any of these apps, you can basically just scroll forever and there's always more content. It didn't actually always used to be that way. That was a design decision that was like tested and created. That was a technological innovation. And that is just one of many UI, user interface design decisions that is essentially like lab created to destroy our minds, basically to get us hooked on screens. So everything about these apps is created to maximize screen time. And this is not just so that like marketers can sell us more stuff, which is definitely part of the intention of having us looking at screens as much as possible. But it's also, there's something kind of more sinister, which is basically that the longer we're looking at these screens, the more our attention is available to these platforms, the more our attention is malleable, the more our emotions are malleable, and the more predictable our behaviors and choices become. So these applications, yes, they're designed to help us connect in ways on one level, and then on a slightly deeper level, they're designed to sell us things, often by making us feel like we're not enough. And then on an even deeper level, they're essentially meant to control and manage populations' behaviors. So our individual behaviors, and then as a collective, how societies operate, the mass decisions that are made by populations, groups of people, and really kind of in a sort of soft power way, like keeping the rails on society and keeping the flow of capital and the flow of workers and the social fabric essentially flowing in a predictable, manageable, and stable, by a particular definition of stable way. So from that perspective, it's very much not your fault if you're addicted to your phone, not your fault if you find yourself scrolling mindlessly or having a hard time, even on your commute, just kind of sitting and either driving or sitting on the bus and just existing until you get to work. That's not your fault. And there's also a psychological reason why it's not your fault. And a lot of it has to do with fear of the unknown. So our phones do an excellent job of filling in the gaps in life. So when there's downtime, there's silence, there's spaciousness. Sometimes it can feel like boredom. Sometimes it can feel like, there's maybe some anxiety creeping in that is unwelcome. It can feel like, some like old memory of myself doing something that I'm not happy about is surfacing. And it's all too easy from the way these phones are designed to fill that gap with stimulation, to fill it essentially with distraction. So there is a psychological reason why, I mean, besides the way these things are just designed, like there is a reason inside of us too, why we are prone to fill the gaps. We don't necessarily know what's going to come up when we have some downtime. We don't know what's going to arise. It could be pleasant, it could be chill, but it could also be some horrible memory or boredom, or it's just something uncomfortable. And as humans, we fear the unknown. Humans love certainty. We love knowing what to expect. We love predictable patterns. That brings us comfort and a sense of safety. And at least when we pick up our phones, we know generally what to expect. At least we know that probably there's going to be some stimulation, some distraction. I mean, even though often what's on our phones is like bad news, I feel like, or something stressful, but at least we feel like we're in control and like we are opting into whatever it is, and whatever it is going to be stimulating and probably less confronting than whatever our subconscious wants to bubble up at any given time, or at least more stimulating than boredom. So it's not our fault for so many reasons that our phones have completely taken over our lives in society. It's really interesting. I ride the bus to work, and there are times on the bus, I've been very intentional the last couple of months about just, I kind of joke and like call it raw dogging life, about just putting down my phone and like sitting on the bus and just being, which by the way has actually been very nice. I'll get to that like in a little bit, but it's actually very like peaceful. But it's also really interesting because there have been times on the bus when I look around and the only other person not on a phone is like an infant. Like it's basically just like me and a baby and then a bunch of other adults like all looking at phones. And I think it's really interesting and also really heartbreaking in ways. But yeah, it's also just really fascinating, just a fascinating sign of our times that phones have really taken over, and I feel like it's so normalized. And now that I'm trying to be on my phone less, I'm just like, this is actually crazy, y'all. Like this doesn't look normal from anymore. Like it used to just be like, yeah, whatever, this is just how it is. Like, yeah, I'm in line, I'm gonna like whip out my phone because like what else am I gonna do? Just stand here, just stand in line? Like I can't possibly do that. And like it seemed so normal for so long, but like now that I'm on my phone less, like it is like actually heartbreaking, and like it doesn't look normal. And again, I'm really not judging like anyone. Like I totally understand this. And like it's heartbreaking because it's not our fault. Like this has been done to us on like a mass scale. And like unfortunately, this does put like responsibility on us to try to undo it and like make the choice to be on our phones less. But yeah, living in the Bay is wild. I'm curious if it's like this in other parts of the country or the world. I mean, I'm like in San Francisco, so I'm in like the hotbed of tech and all of this. And so maybe it's more extreme here. But yeah, it's just being on our phones is so normalized now, but it does change how our minds work, how we interact with each other, how we relate to ourselves, and like just how society operates. I mean, a few things just offhand, kind of as I was talking about earlier, like the more that you're on your phone, the less tolerance you have for boredom, the less tolerance you have for the sort of quiet moments that often fill the gaps in between activity. And being bored is actually super important. Inspiration often arises in the silence between activity. And our minds need a reset. Like modern life is really busy. And when we're on our phones in between activities or when standing in line, we're not giving our minds the opportunity to just take a breath and reset. And like I said, it's often in this space when we are inspired to create something, inspired to learn something. We have insights about ourselves. Whatever your subconscious might bring up, even if it is some like icky memory, like that's an opportunity to learn something, to have an insight, to develop yourself in some way. Like that discomfort is actually really freeing and really important. We need to feel those things. Otherwise, there's just this like emotional backlog of stuff that's just not getting processed. And we start to make choices and actions that are informed by things that we're not even aware of because we haven't thought about them or processed them. Our phones also really change how we relate to ourselves. Oftentimes when we're scrolling on I can't say from experience scrolling on Instagram, but oftentimes when we're scrolling on whatever social media app is our preferred app of choice, we are often engaging in social comparison. We are seeing how others present their lives, how others talk about their lives, obviously in very selective and curated ways, and we're using that as a measuring stick for how we should be, rather than living and getting in touch with who we really are outside of all of the noise and deciding to be our authentic self, regardless of how it might look online, regardless of how different it might be from what other people are doing online. Just being on screens just really robs us of that opportunity to connect with ourselves and be authentic, because life is happening offline. I mean, even the stuff that's that we're consuming on screens had to happen offline first. So life is everywhere else, and truth is inside of you. It's not online, and no one else can tell you what your truth is. And you need to be in the quiet to access that. You need the space in between to align. And then one last effect of being on screens more is that it encourages us to buy more crap, just more stuff we don't need. So I was talking earlier about how, sure, social media and a lot of apps are on the surface designed to help us connect or help us do some task better or more effectively. Yes, on the surface, that is true. And then there's the next level, which is that they're also designed to help businesses and marketers sell things. And more often than not, these are things that we do not need. It's amazing to just do a thought experiment and okay, if you didn't look at any social media for the next month, what would you buy? And probably you would buy food because you need that to live. And sure, if you're out and about and you happen to see something that catches your eye, you might buy that thing, but you wouldn't be marketed at constantly and convinced that you really need this pair of pants or else you're not whole, or if you don't have this particular runner in your apartment, then it's ugly, or these are extreme examples, but you don't actually really need a lot to be happy and whole. Your sense of peace and well-being and worthiness is inherent inside of you. There's nothing that you can buy that will make you happy or make you feel better, as much as the internet will try to convince you otherwise. You already have everything you need. You are already whole. Aside from food, water, shelter, and physical health, you don't need really anything else. It is amazing how little we really need to be truly at peace and happy. And that's because this stuff it's really inherent. At our cores, we are whole, and we just need the space to access that truth. We just need the quiet. So, okay, I've been talking a lot, and you're probably curious, okay, what do I do then? So I'm convinced, yes, phone bad. Cool, I'm convinced. What do I do now? So I'm going to give you a couple of pretty low-hanging fruit, easy tips of how to log off. There's kind of a spectrum. There's log off all the way, which sure, some people might be good at cold turkey. If that's you, go for it. Just give yourself a challenge, and maybe for the next week, just no scrolling, But I also want to give some realistic tips for how to kind of ease yourself into a more intentional relationship with your phone, less screen time overall, and more time raw dogging life, more time just being a person in the world. So the first that I would say is, just start small. The next time that you are commuting to work or standing in line, just don't look at your phone. Just keep it in your pocket. Don't put your earbuds in. Don't listen to anything. Just stand in line. Just stand in line, or just ride to work, drive to work, however you get to work. Just do that one thing. Just be. And see how it is. Just might like it. So that's my first tip, is just start small. Pick a moment. one thing. Is it going to be standing in line? Is it going to be commuting to work? Or whatever else fits into your lifestyle. Pick one small thing and just do not, when you usually use your phone, and just don't do it. And then from there, you can steadily expand. So maybe pick 2 things the next week where you're not going to use your phone, and then go from there. I promise you, it's kind of addictive. Like, it's actually super lit, just like living. Like, I love just sitting on the bus and looking out the window or smiling at other people and having like these fleeting moments of genuine, tender human connection. Like, it's actually at the point where I'm kind of starting to like view my phone as sort of burdensome. Like, it almost feels like an intrusion now. It really has like this snowball effect. So I'm curious if that happens for anyone else. Okay, so that's about looking at your phone less. But then also it's like, yes, I understand like the phone is a tool in ways. Like, on the surface, it is a tool. Besides all those like deeper subterranean aspects, your phone's a tool. You got to use it sometimes. So the other tip is to be more intentional about how you're using your phone. So when you do use it, think about a nice ratio of like utility type usage to passive usage, and minimize the passive usage as much as possible. And like, I understand like you are totally like, you know, life is busy and sometimes it's nice to just like be entertained or, you know, watch an informative video, learn something new. Like, I get that. Think about how much time you are spending on passively consuming content on your phone, whether it's scrolling, watching something, reading articles. Like, this all counts. Like, the news, all of it counts. Anything where you are not like actively creating something, completing a task, where you are passively consuming. Spend the next week just noting like how many hours that is and cut that in half. Just cut it in half. It might sound scary. You might feel like you're not going to be informed. I promise you, nothing is as urgent as your phone makes you think it is. Like, urgency is a trap, and it is more often than not false. And unless it's like your family member or your children or like something that has to do with your personal life, it does not matter as much as your phone is going to make you think that it matters. So whatever you're passively consuming, just spend like the first week in observation mode, noting like what kinds of things do you consume, how long are you spending consuming those things, and then cut that in half, cut it in half, see how that feels. You might even find that you need a lot less of it than you thought. So here's what can happen when you're on your phone less, when you're passively consuming less digital content, myself included. So I already said you might actually kind of like it. I think that, again, this fear of the unknown really drives our desire to fill the gaps of life with anything, basically, to distract us from what might arise in that space. But you might actually relish the silence and the peace and the slower pace of your mind when it is not inundated with information constantly. You might actually find that it's a lot less boring. Life is a lot less boring than you thought it might be. You might find that you are more connected to the world around you, whether it's other people or plants, animals, the air, anything. When you are able to more fully experience what is unfolding, you automatically feel more connected to the world and yourself. Like I said, it's a beautiful thing to catch eyes with someone on the bus and just give a quick smile. Like, I feel a lot more at home in this city, in the world, in my life when, you know, I have these little moments of just human interaction. It's so nice to just walk down the street and notice, oh, that bush that looked one way last week is blooming this week. Like, you start to notice that the world is alive, that everything around you is bursting with energy and beauty, and there's no such thing as boredom in the end. Like, nothing is actually boring. You might also find that you're more inspired, that in the space you are actually full of ideas and full of zest for creation. Like, life is inherently creative. Life was born to make things, to make more life, to create art, to write, to sing, to dance, to bake. I mean, whatever it is, you might find that in that space, you actually have a lot more time in the day and a lot more inspiration to do things in the world, to connect with others in a material, physical, energetic way. And who knows, maybe one of those people that you'll connect with is yourself. You might unearth some things about yourself that have been dying to be seen and heard for such a long time. And I cannot promise that it will always feel good, whatever bubbles up, but I can promise that whatever it is worthwhile and can only make you happier, healthier, and more whole in the long term. So sure, some of the benefits are like in the short term, maybe a little uncomfortable. Maybe it will feel sort of strange, like, okay, there's this time and space now. What do I do with it? Or, oof, yeah, this memory is coming up. That doesn't feel great. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that it's going to be super easy and amazing constantly all the time, because life just isn't that way. But it's real, it's real and it's whole, and it's like, it's you, it's coming from you. You can be sure that whatever is happening, whatever you're thinking, feeling, experiencing, doing is totally coming from you and not from an algorithm or some like creepy tech overlord. Like, you are your own person, and like you can get in touch with that and get to know the amazing person that you are and be the amazing person that you are fully and unapologetically. And because you're more connected with yourself, and because you're not getting marketed to as much or scrolling, seeing all these products you're being convinced will make you better or just get you to where you want to be, you will undoubtedly buy less stuff. So this will probably also be good for your bottom line. Your wallet will be thanking you. So with that, you can put your phone away now.